BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia at heart and from around the globe. And hello, Knidheads. Hello, Black Box Battalion. Today is Tuesday, and on Tuesdays this year I've been talking to you guys about the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, perhaps the most famous missing persons case in the world. And in this episode, I will be discussing the hit-and-run theory, the possibility of Madeleine being killed by a motorist in the area in Praia da Luz, Portugal back in 2007. And you guys know the drill. You can hit the like button if you want, subscribe if you haven't, and drop a comment down below if you have something to say about the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. For larger things, you can send them to me at blackboxonlineradio@aol.com. And I am your host, Box Ned. Firstly, I would like to give a big thank you to everyone who listened to last week's episode, which was on Christian Bruckner as a suspect in Madeleine's disappearance. Christian Bruckner is a German national who was in Praia da Luz in 2007 when Madeleine went missing, and he is a sex offender. He is somebody who targeted victims of all ages, children, teenagers, and adults. So there are lots of reasons to suspect him. However, as I said in last week's episode, I absolutely do not like him as a suspect. If there were more evidence, if there were more convincing evidence, then perhaps I would think that there's a case to make for Christian Bruckner being responsible for Madeleine's disappearance and murder. But in this episode, I want to talk about a different German national who has been accused of causing Madeleine's death, and I think that's the fairest way of putting it. I was about to say murder, but this might be a case of vehicular manslaughter. This might be a case of an accident and someone did some illegal measures to cover it up. And last week I almost titled the episode The German Suspects, but I felt that that was a little bit tacky, and I also thought it was appropriate to differentiate between Christian Bruckner, a suspect who is now a free man, and the unidentified German woman who will simply be just referred to as that, the German tourist or expat worker who was living in Praia da Luz at the time in 2007. So if we go back to May of that year, one of the theories is that Madeleine McCann was staying in the apartment with her family, her mother, Kate, her father, Jerry, and the two twins. And they had this very bizarre system of going out to dinner at night with 5 other residents. They were called the Top of 7, and that they would just periodically check on their own children. They would do their system of checks. And one theory is that things did not go well. The system did not work. Madeleine woke up, she couldn't find her mother and father, so she went looking for them. She exited the apartment, and Madeleine is 3 years old, just shy of her 4th birthday. Yes, of course, she can do things like open doors. The back patio door was also always unlocked. And then she would have gone outside, and while she was looking for her parents, she wandered into the street, into the road, and she was hit by a car, which was driven by a German expat worker. And she was coming home from her shift at a restaurant. Then she took Madeleine's body, put it in the car, and then drove to her residence, where she was staying with her English boyfriend. And one of the reasons why they suspect them is a conversation was overheard by one of the neighbors, and very specifically, the English boyfriend said, "What, you brought her here?" And they're having some type of argument. Now, that's only one of the reasons. And I also have to admit that this is an example of when the news is still coming out. The disappearance of Madeleine McCann may be an older story, but it's also a case of following the news, and new developments are happening every single week in this story. So one more time, if you can hit the like button and subscribe, if you want to follow along with these discussions. And the first place that I heard about the German suspect involved in the hit-and-run theory was on Sky News. And they've made numerous videos about the recent coverage, but they do have an article that is a write-up, and this was written by the crime correspondent Martin Brunt, just citing the source. Madeleine McCann case. Sky News tracks down woman at the center of the hit-and-run theory, investigated by the police. Portuguese and British police investigated the German woman the German woman 7 years ago, while their focus was on a theory that Madeleine woke up, got out of the family's Praia da Luz holiday apartment through an unlocked patio door, and was killed in a hit-and-run incident. This was just before Christian B. emerged as the prime suspect over the 3-year-old British girl's disappearance in 2007. And Christian B is, of course, Christian Bruckner, but that's not even his legal name. If you do a couple Google searches, you can find his legal name online. It just appears that the German legal system has some very strict privacy laws. And this also goes on for a while about Christian Bruckner being released from prison, but I want to focus more on the hit-and-run theory for this episode. The hit-and-run theory was leaked to Portugal's Correio da Manhã newspaper in June. It didn't identify the woman, but the report suggested that the investigation fizzled out because German authorities refused to get involved and deploy an undercover detective to befriend the suspect. Sky News tracked down the German woman, and she said that she was not aware that she had been under suspicion. She told us that she had been working in a restaurant near the beach in Praia da Luz and got home after the time Madeleine was discovered missing from her bed. Her British partner was a chef at the Ocean Club who had served dinner to the McCanns and their friends. Now, this is also going to be something that's going to be very important because it all relates to the timelines. And, did she have enough time to get off work, get home, and does that correspond with when Madeleine went missing? Well, we're going to keep going. She said, "I don't even know if there was a car accident because I was working. I came home at 10:30 and my boyfriend was already home. But it's my understanding that she got off work at 10 o'clock, and then she is home at 10:30. You know how somebody gets off work, and it's not a 30-minute drive to where she was staying with her boyfriend, but, okay, people get off work, they talk, they get ready to go home, and then they exit. But let's just keep going here. Their flat, like the homes in many residents, was searched by the Portuguese police in the days after Madeleine vanished. "Do you think I've cut her up?" the German woman said. She also got angry during a second search when she was asked to empty her freezer and asked a police officer, "Do you think I've cut her up in little pieces and that I'm going to have her for dinner?" So it seems like it's not only the overheard conversation, it's also these suspicious statements. The woman said that more than 10 years later, the German police contacted her, but only to ask if she knew Christian B. or had seen him near the McCann's residence. She said, "They wanted to know if I ever saw this German bloke around the area where I was living for a long time. Other people obviously saw his van, but I never saw it." And the German woman told the police commissar who is the equivalent to an inspector, that several times over the years she did not know him. Okay, so I think, though, I just really want to look at something that is very important. I want to get to the heart and soul of the issue. Did she have the ability to be responsible for Madeleine's death or not? And this is going to relate to two things. Firstly, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't like this theory. I do not like it at all for the following reason. And that is Madeleine McCann the only 3-year-old girl who could wander out into the street and get hit by a car, and there wouldn't be any evidence at all? With the amount of people looking for Madeleine McCann, we're talking about hairs, blood. Yes, how about that blood evidence in the street? Anything to suggest that Madeleine was actually hit by the car. Some type of broken piece of plastic that would suggest that there was a car accident immediately in the street that was next to her holiday apartment. I'm just like, where's the hard evidence of this? Is Madeleine the only 3-year-old that could not leave an ounce of DNA behind, an ounce of blood, or just like one, if there was a single hair in the middle of the road that had blood on it, I would say this is a viable theory. But that evidence doesn't seem to be reported on. And when I say reported on, if anything like that exists, it doesn't seem to be made available to the general public. But another thing that we're going to do in this episode is look at the timeline of the disappearance. And I also want to point out that in the past, when you would just try to read about the Madeleine McCann timeline, which I do have an old Black Box recording episode on, it used to be very easily accessible. I know that many years have gone by since Madeleine's disappearance, but almost all of the timelines now that are available at major news outlets are talking about the years. Okay, this is what happened in May of 2007, and this is what happened in June of 2007, August, and then it jumps to 2008, 2012, and then 2025. They're not really looking at this for the night of the disappearance, and I'm really surprised that it's not more easily accessible. If you do a Google search for the timeline in the disappearance of Madeleine McCann, it should include the day of. It should include the day that she went missing back in May of 2007. And I mean, I'm just surprised. I don't think there's any type of weird, atrocious cover-up or anything like that. I just think that it's surprising that these sources get pushed to the top of Google's algorithm when it's like, all right, we're waiting for news stories. Yes, we want to know what's going to happen with Christian B. But I've noticed that even you guys in the comment section were extremely skeptical about Christian Bruckner as a suspect in the Madeleine case, and it's almost as if the authorities just want to act like they're doing something. They want to just act like they have a person of interest. They want to just act like they have a fall guy, and of course, they're not going to call him a fall guy straight out, but that's the way it seems to be perceived when I'm just reading the comments from other people, when I'm listening to people who have closely followed the case. They're like, this guy Christian Bruckner, he sounds like a criminal, an unsavory individual. He sounds like a genuinely bad person. But where's the hard evidence to convict him to Madeleine's murder? So let's get to the timeline that was shared by Fit Chef, and I thank that person for sharing this one. And we're going to go straight to the night that Madeleine disappeared. And let's start at 6:40 p.m. in the evening. Kate McCann and the children are alone in apartment 5A. Kate doesn't mention about what happened after she left. And at 7 o'clock, Jerry returns to apartment 5A, and it was reported that he had been playing tennis earlier that night. 7 o'clock to 8:35, Kate and Jerry stated that they read a children's book while sitting on the sofa. Kate and Jerry said that they moved to the children's bedroom and read another story while they were sitting on the bed. They then put the children to bed. Then Jerry says he and Kate took showers or baths and drank beer and New Zealand wine before heading to the tapas bar at 8:35. And I said this last week, but I'll say it again real fast. Some people were asking why didn't they use the night crash, which is like a daycare but at night. And the short response was they thought that it started too early, they had to drop the kids off too early, and they had to pick them up too late, and they found that the time was inconvenient. So that's why Jerry and Kate and the other members of their dining group, which is called the Tapas 7, wanted to do this system of checks where they periodically check on their own kids. And I said this years ago when I did an old black box recording, but when I had first heard of the system of checks, I thought that once every 30 minutes someone would do a giant loop around and go check on everybody's kids. And I was like, what a bizarre operation. No, it's just that periodically people would check on their own kids or maybe one other person. But going to 8:45, and that is the Paynes and Diane Webster were late. 9 o'clock, Matthew Oldfield supposedly went to check on all of the children and listen at the apartments. He said all the shutters were down. But did he actually do that? I will share one thing in a second. 9:05, Jerry says he went to check on the children around 9:15. Jerry says he went up to check on the children at 9:05. At 9:15, Jane Tanner walks to the apartment complex to check on her own children when Jerry is seen by Jane Tanner talking to Jeremy Wilkins outside 5A. Jane also said that she saw a man carrying a child with a flower motif on the pajamas and walking hurriedly toward the east of the apartment complex. This will be the famous Tanner Man sighting. And if I can be very honest with you, I think the Tanner Man is the biggest red herring in the whole case. I don't think that it's relevant to Madeleine's disappearance, only because one of the holiday makers came forward and presented himself in the clothing that he allegedly wore at that time on that day. And he's like, no, that was me, and I was with my own daughter. Hey, look, here are my clothes. These are my daughter's clothes. And that might have absolutely nothing to do with Madeleine's disappearance at all. That's just a different man with his own daughter. So what do you guys think about the Tanner Man? Let me know in the comments section down below. I must say this 9 o'clock check from Matthew Oldfield is very suspicious, and I mean, it really is. He's saying he checked on everybody's kids, but then at 9:05, Jerry's going to check on his own children. Doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of the check system, concentrating the check activity when it's not necessary and leaving these wide open gaps when it is necessary? And even though there are some things about how not everybody was checking on all the kids every single time, I've accepted that, and I've already told you that, but I still think it's a bizarre system. Okay, so at 9:30, the dinner is finally served, and the waiters were told to keep some food warm because not everyone was there. 9:35, Russell O'Brien left the table to check on his children. 9:40, Jane Tanner goes to check on her daughters a second time, and that at 9:45, Russell returns, and then at 10 o'clock, or 10:05, depending on the statement, Kate goes to check on the children, and she notices that Maddie is not there, and she said that she checked everywhere in the apartment. At 10:05 or 10:10, depending on the statement, Kate returns back to the tapas bar and reportedly says, "They've taken her, the bastards have taken her." Alright, now, this is at 10 o'clock. This episode is concentrating on the hit and run theory, so I'm just sitting back and thinking, now wait a second, that woman, the German woman who has not been identified by name, states that she was at work until 10 o'clock that night, and Madeleine was noticed missing at 10 o'clock. So, is that possible? How could she have left work and then hit Madeleine in her car, or a car, and then put Madeleine in the car and driven home and had that argument with her boyfriend? Then she makes the suspicious statement to the police. So, how could that possibly work out? Well, firstly, as you have already heard, there are conflicting reports that Kate was there at 10 o'clock or 10:05, and this is very, very important. Let's say Kate actually did check on her at 10:05. Would 5 minutes be enough for someone to commit the crime? I mean, somebody gets out the door, they're in the car, they're driving down the road at 10 o'clock, 10:01, 10:02, and, I mean, if she had hit Madeleine at 10:03 p.m., looks around, there's nobody there, puts Madeleine in the car and drives away. Oh no, what have I done? What a terrible, terrible tragedy, but what have I done? And she panics, she goes home to her boyfriend. He's like, "What? You brought her here?" Yes, I think that time works out because she would only need 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 45 seconds to respond that way. Hitting somebody with her car, putting the child into the car, and then getting away, and then the belief would be that Madeleine was buried somewhere else. However, I do have a very strong challenge to this. And firstly, I think everybody is just saying habeas corpus. Where's the body if this actually happened? Where did the German woman and her boyfriend bury the body if that's the case? All right. So that's one issue. You've also already heard that the police have investigated her, and they didn't find any evidence of Madeleine being in her apartment, although we don't know how thorough the investigations were. There's also no evidence that Madeleine was hit on the road at the time. Bro, I mean, we're talking about definitive physical evidence that would link Madeleine to the hit and run, and then I just want to be clear about something, though. I think the timeline may have worked, because when people leave work, it's always an estimation, right? Unless they're being dispatched for something. It's an estimation. Yes, the timeline does work out, in my opinion, but in terms of practicality, I think this is horribly implausible, and I do have one final point for you. And one thing that was shared by Sky News was that the German woman who claimed that she was being investigated said, "Well, I couldn't possibly have hit Madeleine with my car because I didn't have a car. I didn't drive when I was in Praia de Luz." Or very clearly, I don't want to put words in her mouth. She said that she did not have a car at the time. And that's the whole theory, though, that she was not driving her car. She had borrowed the car from somebody else because she would have been driving a car she's not familiar with, and maybe not even super familiar with driving the roads, not paying attention, or just not being familiar with the vehicle. She hit Madeleine McCann, and she puts her in the car, drives her to the boyfriend's residence. They have the conversation, they decide what to do with the body, and her boyfriend has since passed away, so he can't be questioned. But, again, no hard evidence. That's all conjecture. That's all speculation. And the absolute final thing that I will leave you with is, does it seem like they're only trying to connect her to this story because she was a German national and Christian Bruckner was a German national? And they're trying to hype this up because, oh, maybe they knew each other, that there's some type of interaction between the German citizens in Praia de Luz, Portugal, and partnered with the statement that perhaps they're just trying to vilify somebody who made some suspicious statements to the police. What, do you think I cut her up and put her in the freezer and ate her? Oh, that might bother the police, but that does not mean that she killed her. That's somebody who was angry that they were being questioned. No, I didn't have anything to do with her disappearance. Sometimes people respond like that, and they are telling the truth. But let me know what you think about the hit and run theory. As you can tell, I absolutely do not like it. I don't agree with it. I think it's wrong. But let me know what you think. And if I made any mistakes, let me know where I went wrong in the comment section. Share anything you want. You guys know where to write the show, blackboxonlineradio@AOL.com. You can also get me on Facebook. My personal Facebook name is Ned DeHaan, and I release shorts and reels Monday through Friday on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. The Instagram page is blackboxned88. And if you want to support all of these efforts, you can go over to buymeacoffee.com. buymeacoffee.com/blackboxned88, and that allows you to make a donation or contribution to help support the show, and anybody who makes a donation will get a shout out on Zodiac Monday. That's all for me now, and I will see you tomorrow for an episode about Jack the Ripper. Until next time.